Hello, brothers, and welcome to Sigma Old Man Channel. Silence is only terrifying when it belongs to the man who doesn't need your applause. That's the Sigma male in a single sentence. He isn't posting daily highlight reels, he isn't sweating for validation, and he isn't lining up for approval like most men do. And here's the unnerving fact. According to multiple studies, women are biologically wired to chase what they can't easily possess, which explains why the Sigma male, the man who refuses to play the game, ends up becoming the most hunted prize on the board. He doesn't strut, he doesn't brag, and he doesn't perform, and yet women can't stop circling around him like satellites to a planet that doesn't even acknowledge their orbit. That paradox alone is what makes him irresistible. He's the glitch in the dating matrix, the man who doesn't care if he's chosen, which is exactly why he keeps getting chosen. And if you think women love certainty, predictability, and stability, wait until you see how quickly those same women lose their minds over the man who gives them none of it. It's obsession disguised as curiosity. And once a Sigma crosses their path, they can't delete him from their minds, no matter how hard they try. Now let's uncover the raw, shocking truths about why women are obsessed with Sigma males. Truths that no cliché can explain. Number one, he doesn't offer obvious weak points. Most men, even the strongest ones, eventually show their hand. You can see what drives them. The need to be admired, the hunger for sex, the itch for validation, or the obsession with leaving a legacy. Their weak points leak out in conversations, in how they react to certain women, or in the way they scramble to defend their egos. Women are quick to notice these cracks, and once they spot them, the mystery is gone. They know what buttons to press and what strings to pull. But with the Sigma, that playbook collapses. He doesn't flaunt his desires, he doesn't perform his intentions, and he doesn't feed anyone easy access to his vulnerabilities. His calmness isn't a mask, it's a fortress. Even when he wants something, he doesn't broadcast it the way others do. That concealment isn't about deception, it's about discipline. He understands that once people know your weak points, they own parts of you, so he denies them that ownership. For women, this is maddening. They're not driven by cruelty in probing him, but by pure curiosity. Human nature wants to find the crack in the armor, and the Sigma's armor feels seamless. The more she fails to uncover his weaknesses, the more determined she becomes. It's not about conquering him sexually or emotionally. It's about solving him. He becomes a living riddle, a puzzle that resists completion. And for many women, that challenge becomes addictive. This is what makes him unforgettable. While most men crumble under the weight of their own exposed needs, the Sigma remains unreadable. Every unanswered question about him creates another layer of fascination. She wonders what he fears, what he secretly craves, what might actually break his composure, and the absence of those answers gnaws at her. In the end, she doesn't obsess because he's perfect. She obsesses because he withholds the blueprint of his humanity in a world where everyone else hands it out freely. His refusal to expose obvious weak points forces her to keep searching, and the search itself is what binds her to him. It's not his vulnerability that keeps her hooked. It's the haunting absence of it. Number two, he's immune to sexual bargaining. For most men, sex is the silent bargaining chip that shapes their behavior. A woman shows interest and suddenly he's more agreeable, more generous, more eager to bend his principles just to stay in her good graces. Many women know this instinctively. They don't always wield it maliciously, but they understand the leverage it gives them. Their beauty, charm, or hints of intimacy can tilt the scales in their favor until they meet a Sigma. The Sigma doesn't play along because he's not controlled by the same cravings. It's not that he doesn't desire women, it's that he refuses to let desire rewrite his code. He won't compromise his standards, he won't contort his personality, and he won't orbit around the possibility of intimacy. This is what makes him different. For him, sex isn't a trophy, it isn't validation, and it isn't currency. It's simply one part of life, not the part that dictates his moves. This immunity unnerves women because it dismantles one of the oldest dynamics in male-female interaction. If their bargaining chip doesn't work on him, what does? That unanswered question digs at them. They keep probing, testing, and trying. Not necessarily because they want him in the conventional sense, but because they want to understand what actually motivates a man who can't be baited by the one thing that works on almost everyone else. Ironically, his immunity makes him more attractive. The less he seems to need it, the more they want to give it, It flips the script entirely. Instead of him chasing intimacy, they start chasing his attention, desperate to prove that they can matter to a man who doesn't bend for anyone. That inversion is what turns curiosity into obsession. The Sigma doesn't reject sex, he simply refuses to be enslaved by it. And that quiet refusal transforms him into a rare figure in the eyes of women. A man who can't be bribed, seduced, or maneuvered with what the world has always told them is their strongest card. To a woman, that's both infuriating and irresistible. It forces her to see him not as a prize she can claim, but as a mystery she has to unravel. Number 3, his quietness isn't shyness, it's control. Quiet men are often written off as shy, insecure, or socially awkward. People assume silence comes from a lack of confidence, as if speaking less means having less to offer. But with the Sigma male, quietness is never a flaw. It's a weapon. His silence isn't accidental. It's deliberate. He doesn't rush to fill every pause. He doesn't compete for airtime, and he doesn't waste words on fluff. Instead, he uses silence the way a surgeon uses a scalpel, with precision and intent. At first, women may mistake this restraint for nervousness. They're used to men over-explaining, overselling, and over-talking in a desperate bid to impress. The Sigma does the opposite. He listens more than he speaks, and when he does speak, his words cut straight to the point. That sharp contrast is what flips the narrative. Women quickly realize his quietness isn't weakness, it's control. He decides when to engage, how much to reveal, and what deserves his voice. This level of restraint makes every word he does say feel heavier. Instead of being drowned in chatter, his sentences land with impact. They stick. A single comment from him can replay in her head for days because it wasn't tossed out casually, it was chosen. In a world of constant noise, his selective voice feels rare, valuable, even dangerous. That's where the obsession creeps in. Women find themselves leaning in, paying closer attention, waiting for what he'll say next, because they know it won't be wasted breath. His silence creates a gravity that demands presence. Unlike men who lose power by talking too much, the Sigma gains power by saying less. What makes this dynamic even more compelling is that his quietness leaves space for imagination. In the gaps he doesn't fill, women start filling them for him, wondering what he's thinking, what he's planning, what he's holding back. That mystery isn't an act, it's a natural byproduct of his control. And so his quietness becomes unforgettable, not because it hides him, but because it amplifies him. In a crowd of voices screaming to be heard, the Sigma's silence commands more attention than their noise ever could. Number 4, he turns obsession into self-reflection. When a woman becomes obsessed with a Sigma male, she often thinks it's because of something he did, the way he carried himself, the way he spoke, or the fact that he didn't chase her like everyone else. But the truth runs deeper. The obsession isn't really about him at all. It's about what he awakens inside her that she didn't even know existed. He doesn't feed her the usual doses of validation, compliments, or predictable attention. Instead, his presence pulls her into a kind of mirror where she's forced to face parts of herself she usually hides. That's why he lingers in her mind long after he's gone. The Sigma doesn't go out of his way to play games, but his refusal to bend into her expectations exposes her unspoken cravings. She begins asking herself questions she never had to ask with other men. Why doesn't he respond the way I want? Why doesn't he crumble under my charm? Why doesn't he need me the way others do? That loop of unanswered questions turns into a mental hook. It's not about him chasing her. It's about her chasing her own reflection in him. This is where the obsession becomes dangerous. Because while she's trying to decode him, she's really trying to decode herself. Every encounter with him highlights her own patterns, her reliance on beauty, her hunger for control, her fear of being unseen. Instead of soothing those insecurities, the Sigma quietly makes them louder. He doesn't argue, he doesn't try to fix her, he just exists in a way that forces her to feel them, and that's what makes him unforgettable. Even if she walks away, she carries the ghost of what he represented. Not just a man she couldn't pin down, but the reminder that her usual tricks didn't work. That reminder scratches at her ego, but it also scratches at her deeper curiosity. What does he see in me that I can't see? The Sigma becomes less of a man and more of a riddle she can't solve. And the hardest truth? She isn't obsessed with him. She's obsessed with the version of herself he revealed. and that's why she'll never fully escape him. Number 5, he offers mystery without theater. Most men who try to look mysterious end up performing it. They delay replies just to seem busy, drop vague one-liners to sound deep, or act detached in ways that feel forced. It's theater, a script they put on because they know women are drawn to the unknown. But the problem with performance is that it cracks. Eventually the mask slips, and the mystery evaporates into nothing more than a bad act. The Sigma doesn't need to manufacture mystery because he lives in it naturally. His life, his choices, and his demeanor already exist outside the normal script most people follow. He doesn't overshare, he doesn't broadcast every detail, and he doesn't seek validation by being constantly visible. That lack of exposure creates gaps, and it's in those gaps that intrigue grows. Women sense there's more to him than he shows, and the fact that he's not actively trying to prove it makes it even more magnetic. What makes his mystery so powerful is that it's rooted in authenticity. He's not withholding to manipulate, he's withholding because he simply doesn't feel the need to explain himself. And that authenticity makes his presence unpredictable. Women can't decode him because there's no act to decode, only layers of genuine complexity that reveal themselves slowly, if at all. This kind of mystery is far more potent than a fabricated one because it doesn't collapse under scrutiny. Every time a woman thinks she's figured him out, she realizes there's another layer she missed. That continual sense of almost knowing, but not quite, keeps her chasing, digging, and circling back. And the strangest part, he doesn't even try to generate this pull. While others build their mysterious personas with effort, the Sigma's mystery is effortless. It's a byproduct of self-possession, independence, and detachment from approval. Women are drawn to it not because he's playing a role, but because he's not playing at all. That's why his mystery never fades into disappointment. It deepens instead. And once a woman is caught in that gravity, she realizes she's not chasing a performance. She's chasing a reality she can't fully grasp. And that's what keeps her hooked. Number 6, his lack of social competition reframes value. Most men, whether they admit it or not, are locked in constant comparison games. Who earns more, who drives better, who has the sharper suit, who gets the most attention. It's an endless arms race for money, looks, and status. And women see it everywhere. Social gatherings, online feeds, even casual conversations turn into subtle competitions. But the Sigma refuses to step into that ring. He doesn't posture, he doesn't flex, and he doesn't measure himself against anyone else. That radical absence of competition is jarring because it throws the whole system off balance. For women, this is a shock to the nervous system. They're used to men battling for position, sometimes even over them, and it creates a predictable rhythm. Higher status equals higher value. But when the Sigma opts out of that hierarchy completely, the equation breaks. He isn't proving himself, and yet he still carries weight. He isn't striving to be chosen, and yet people still notice him. His refusal to play the game redefines the rules of attraction in real time. This makes women question what value actually is. If it isn't wealth signaling, if it isn't physical flexing, if it isn't loud dominance, then what is it? The Sigma answers with something far more unsettling, value that exists without external validation. His worth doesn't come from beating others, it comes from existing on his own terms. That kind of independence is rare, and it rattles assumptions about what makes a man desirable. The irony is that by refusing to compete, he stands out more. The men scrambling to prove themselves blur together, but the Sigma who doesn't move an inch becomes the reference point. Women start to see that maybe the man who isn't fighting for attention is the one who actually deserves it. In the end, his lack of social competition does more than elevate him. It forces women to confront how shallow their usual standards can be. And once they glimpse a man whose value doesn't need an audience, it becomes hard to look at status chasers the same way again. That quiet defiance reframes attraction itself and leaves them obsessing over the man who never entered the contest to begin with. Number 7. He inspires confession instead of seduction. Most men trigger performance. Women slip into roles, the flirt, the charmer, the untouchable. They peacock with beauty, with playful banter, with carefully curated versions of themselves. It's instinctive because most men respond to that show with excitement, attention, and validation. But the Sigma short-circuits the script. He doesn't feed the performance, he doesn't mirror the act, and he doesn't seem impressed by the costume. That lack of reaction does something unusual. It strips the stage away. Around him, women start to drop the roles. Instead of seducing, they confess. Instead of trying to look flawless, they admit flaws. Instead of dazzling with charm, they reveal insecurities. His calm, detached energy has a way of saying, "You don't have to perform here. I'm not grading you." And the moment she realizes that, something powerful happens. She lets her guard down, not because he demanded it, but because his presence made her feel she could. That shift is addicting. Seduction is shallow and burns out quickly. Confession runs deep and lingers. When a woman finds herself revealing secrets, fears, and truths she normally guards, the bond becomes unforgettable. It's not about sexual tension anymore. It's about psychological intimacy. She feels seen in a way that has nothing to do with her beauty and everything to do with her unfiltered self. And here's the irony. The Sigma doesn't orchestrate this. He's not manipulating or fishing for confessions. His very detachment from the social games disarms the people around him. He creates a rare silence in which truth can exist without judgment. And once a woman has tasted that kind of freedom, the memory of it doesn't go away. That's why women don't just find him attractive, they find him haunting. He becomes the man they told the truth to when they didn't mean to, the man who pulled out their raw self without asking. And that kind of intimacy isn't casual, it's addictive. Because in a world where everyone is performing, the person who inspires confession feels like oxygen. And women never forget the man who gave them that. Number 8. His self-sufficiency makes women question their own power. Most men, whether they admit it or not, are deeply influenced by beauty, charm, and social signals. A pretty face, a well-placed compliment, or the hint of high status is usually enough to bend them at least a little. Women know this, and for years it has been their silent currency, the unspoken power they wield in every interaction. But with the Sigma male, that currency suddenly feels counterfeit. He doesn't buy into it. He doesn't change his tone because she's attractive. He doesn't stumble over words when she flashes a smile. And he doesn't scramble to impress her because she's well connected. That indifference feels less like rejection and more like a power shift she wasn't prepared for. This is where the obsession begins. When the usual levers of influence stop working, the question that keeps echoing in her head is brutally simple. If beauty, charm, and status don't move him, what will? That question doesn't just spark curiosity, it ignites a kind of restless fixation. It forces her to think beyond the surface, to dig into parts of herself she's rarely had to confront. She's used to being enough simply by showing up. With him, showing up isn't enough, and that realization is both maddening and magnetic. His self-sufficiency dismantles the script she's always relied on. Suddenly, she isn't in control of the rhythm, and she's left scrambling for a new playbook. For some women, this is frustrating. For others, it's intoxicating. Either way, it's unforgettable, because what he represents is a man who can't be bought with the cheapest currency of attention and appearance. He forces her to ask, what else do I have to offer beyond what I've always leaned on? That question is heavy because it cuts to the core of identity, and once it's asked, it can't be unasked. That's why women don't just notice Sigma males. They stay haunted by them. His refusal to bend to surface-level influence doesn't just protect his power, it shakes hers. And in that shake, obsession takes root. Number 9. He alters their standard of desire. When a woman encounters a Sigma male, something inside her recalibrates. At first, she might not even notice it happening. She just feels pulled in by his energy, the way he doesn't try to impress, the way he doesn't crumble under charm, the way he doesn't act like everyone else. But over time, the pull becomes something deeper, a rewiring of what she finds desirable. The Sigma shifts her baseline, and once that shift happens, there's no undoing it. Most men are predictable, their triggers are obvious, their reactions easy to map, their intentions transparent. A woman knows how to win them, how to keep them, and how to let them go when she's done. That predictability feels safe, but it also feels boring. When she's dealt with a Sigma, ordinary men start to look unbearably flat. The magic is gone before it even starts, because she's tasted something different, a man who isn't easily owned. The Sigma redefines attraction by showing her what it's like to crave not control, but curiosity. With him, she never quite feels in charge, and that tension is electrifying. He doesn't bend to her beauty, he doesn't orbit her attention, and he doesn't beg for her approval. Instead, he stands apart, steady, untouchable, and entirely himself. That difference makes her realize how shallow her previous standards were. It's not money, looks, or charm that hook her anymore. It's depth, unpredictability, and independence. And here's the catch. Once her standard of desire has been altered, going back feels impossible. Ordinary men, with their eagerness and their need to be owned, feel suffocating. What used to work, flattery, control, games, suddenly feels cheap. The Sigma ruins her appetite for average because he showed her a kind of presence that can't be bought or manipulated. That's why women often describe encounters with Sigma males as unforgettable. It's not just the man they remember, it's the shift he triggered inside them. He becomes the measure, the silent yardstick against which every other man is compared. And once that standard has been reset, no one else feels enough. He doesn't just change how they see him, he changes how they see every man after him. Number 10, he forces women to confront their own emptiness. Most men, whether they realize it or not, hand women power without resistance. They bend under beauty, they shift under charm, and they adjust their behavior just to avoid losing favor. Women are used to this dynamic. It reinforces their influence and keeps them in control. But when they collide with a Sigma, that script shatters. He doesn't bend, he doesn't play, he doesn't give in to manipulation or domination, no matter how subtle or well-crafted it may be. And in that refusal, something uncomfortable happens. She's forced to face herself. The Sigma doesn't fight her, and he doesn't submit either. He simply stands still, unaffected. That stillness is like a mirror, reflecting her strategies, her games, her hunger for control. She begins to notice how much of her power depends on others surrendering to it. Without his reaction, her tricks lose their magic. The smiles, the tests, the silence, none of it lands the way it usually does. Instead of controlling him, she finds herself confronted by her own emptiness when the control fails. This moment is both unsettling and unforgettable. It forces her to ask questions she would rather avoid. If I can't move him with what usually works, do I have anything else? Who am I when beauty, charm, or influence don't guarantee power? Those questions sting because they dig beneath the surface. They expose a reliance on external tools rather than inner depth. Even if she resents him for it, the Sigma leaves a mark she can't erase. He becomes the man who made her see that her arsenal isn't as powerful as she thought. That realization doesn't vanish when he leaves. It lingers, echoing in her relationships with others. She may try to dismiss him, even mock him in her mind, but the truth gnaws beneath the denial. He forced her to confront something raw and unpolished inside herself. That's why the Sigma is unforgettable. It's not just attraction, not just mystery, but the uncomfortable confrontation he triggers. While other men inflate her power, he reveals its limits. And once she's seen those limits, she can't unsee them. She might resent him, she might crave him, but either way, he's burned into her memory forever. Number 11, he breaks the reward cycle. For most women, beauty has always been currency. A smile, a glance, or even just showing up is enough to unlock male attention, affection, and effort. They don't have to chase it. It comes to them on autopilot. Compliments, favors, and validation flood in because men instinctively reward what they find attractive. Over time, this creates a cycle. Beauty equals instant payoff. It's predictable, reliable, and comforting. But when a Sigma male enters the picture, that cycle grinds to a halt. The Sigma doesn't hand out worship just because she's beautiful. He notices beauty, of course, but he doesn't place it on a pedestal. He doesn't inflate her ego. He doesn't scramble for her approval, and he doesn't adjust his entire demeanor to gain her favor. His attention has to be earned, not purchased with surface-level appeal. And because he doesn't bow to the usual cues, he quietly breaks the reward cycle she's always depended on. This disruption is more powerful than rejection. Rejection can be dismissed as, he's not interested, or he's not my type. But the Sigma's indifference doesn't feel like rejection. It feels like a challenge. She doesn't lose his attention. She never had it to begin with. That absence pulls her in deeper because humans crave what isn't freely given. Suddenly, the validation she normally receives passively becomes something she has to fight for, and that reversal makes him unforgettable. Ironically, it's his lack of worship that flips the script. Instead of being the prize who is constantly pursued, she becomes the one chasing, the one performing, the one seeking proof that she can crack his armor. She may not even want him in a conventional sense, but she wants to matter to him. and that hunger drives obsession. The Sigma doesn't manipulate this dynamic. He's not withholding strategically, he's simply immune to the default cycle. But his natural refusal to play the beauty for validation game creates a paradox women can't ignore. The very thing they thought guaranteed power no longer works. And when the reward cycle breaks, it's not him they're really chasing. It's the lost sense of certainty he took away without even trying. Number 12. His independence isn't performed, it's lived. Most men who claim to be independent are really just performing it. They talk loudly about not needing anyone, but beneath the surface they're still desperate for approval. They want to be admired for their independence, which already makes it a contradiction. It's branding, a costume they put on because they know it earns respect. But with the Sigma, independence isn't a costume. It's not something he announces or tries to prove. It's how he actually lives. His independence comes from survival, not performance. He doesn't orbit anyone's validation, and he doesn't rearrange his life to fit in. He built his identity outside of approval, which is why he doesn't panic when it's missing. That difference may sound subtle, but women pick up on it instantly. They can sense when independence is real versus when it's an act. And the Sigma's version carries a weight that most men can't fake. This kind of independence terrifies women in the most attractive way. It's not the rebellion of a man trying to stand out. It's the steadiness of a man who can't be moved. That makes him unpredictable, not because he's playing games, but because no one holds the strings. Women realize quickly that beauty, charm, and social pressure have little effect on him. He exists outside the usual levers of influence, and that detachment forces them to question their own pull. At the same time, his independence creates a rare form of security. Unlike men who collapse without validation, the Sigma doesn't drain anyone for reassurance. He carries himself. He makes his choices. He stands on his own legs. That steadiness is deeply attractive because it feels unshakable. And yet the very fact that he doesn't need anyone makes women crave being the exception, the one person he'd actually let in. That paradox is what makes him unforgettable. His independence isn't about rejecting people. It's about not depending on them. And once a woman experiences that level of authenticity, she realizes how hollow most independent men really are. The Sigma doesn't perform freedom, he embodies it. And that embodiment doesn't just attract women, it unsettles them, hooks them, and leaves them chasing a man who doesn't chase back. At the core of it all, Sigma males don't captivate women because they follow some secret playbook. They captivate because they refuse to play at all. Every trait that makes them magnetic isn't a performance, it's a byproduct of living outside the noise. Their silence holds weight, their independence is real, their mystery isn't staged, and their refusal to bend under beauty or social pressure forces women to confront truths about themselves they'd rather avoid. That's why obsession follows them. It's not about the Sigma being perfect, it's about him disrupting the predictable patterns that most women are used to controlling. When a woman meets a Sigma, her entire framework of desire gets challenged. Suddenly, validation doesn't come easy, charm doesn't guarantee influence, and power games fall flat. What's left is raw curiosity, a haunting need to understand the man who won't be moved. Whether she loves him, resents him, or both at once, he becomes unforgettable. Not because he chased her, but because he rewired her standard of what it means to want someone. And that's the shocking truth. Sigma males don't inspire obsession by trying, they inspire it by simply being. They are proof that real power doesn't shout, it doesn't perform, and it doesn't seek permission, it simply exists. And once a woman encounters that kind of presence, she can't unsee it, she can't undo it, and she can't escape the echo it leaves behind. If this video hit you with truths you've never heard before, then don't just scroll away. Stay connected. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss the next drop. Smash the like if you got value, and leave a comment sharing your thoughts. I want to know what resonated with you most, and don't keep this to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. The more we grow this community, the deeper we can go into the truths most people are too afraid to talk about.